Ava, I'll have you come up here. You come stand by me. We'll do the prayer, and then immediately after the prayer, we'll do.
The House of Representatives will now come to order. Leading us in our prayer this afternoon is Pastor Sam Hanchek of the Fort Pierre Ministerial Association, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance led by our page of the day, Ava Davis of Ipswich. Please rise.
We pray. Lord God, bless these representatives with the ability to perform their work well. Give them strength and encouragement when the days grow long and the amount of work increases. Provide them with wisdom to see the best way to serve the people of this state. Give them both ears to listen and mouths to speak for the benefit of these citizens. I pray in Jesus' name, amen.
I Thank you.
The clerk will please call the roll.
Representatives Andera, Arlen, Auk, Elward, Baumüller, Bathke, Baxter, Sismowski, DeGroot, Derby, Duffy, Emery, Fitzgerald, Fosness, Garcia, Goodwin, Gosh, Greenfield, Helverson, Healy, Heerman, Heineman, Hughes, Hunt, Ismay, Jameson, Jensen, Jordan, Jorgensen, Casson, Kaiser, Colbeck, Call, Ladner, Lems, Manhart, Massey, May, Moore, Mortensen, Muckey, Mullally, Mulder, Knowles, Norstrup, Odenbach, Overwig, Peterson, Poyer, Randolph, Rayfelt, Reimer, Reich, Rice, Roby, Rowe, Schaefbauer, Schwanz, Shorma, Schubeck, Sharda, Soy, Stevens, Uribalk, Van Diepen, Wahlberg, Weems, Weisgram, Whitman, Speaker Hansen.
Here.
Mr. Speaker, there is a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite our pages up to the front for their oath of office. Okay, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota, and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of page according to the best of my abilities. Thank you and welcome. Approval of the journal.
Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Legislative Procedure respectfully reports that the Chief Clerk of the House has had under consideration the House Journal of the 25th day. All errors, typographical or otherwise, are duly marked in the temporary journal for correction. And we hereby move the adoption of the report. Respectfully submitted, John Hanson, Chair.
That motion having been made and seconded, any remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the journal will signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Communications.
Mr. Speaker and members of the House of Representatives, I have the honor to inform you that on February 23, 2026, I approved House Bills 1020, 1030, 1034, and 1080, and the same have been deposited in the Office of the Secretary of State. Respectfully submitted, Larry Roden, Governor.
Reports of standing committees.
Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Legislative Procedure respectfully reports that House Bill 1003, 1019, 1035, and 1201 were delivered to His Excellency the Governor for his approval at 11:23 a.m. February 23, 2026, respectfully submitted, John Hanson, Chair. Mr. Speaker, the Committee on Legislative Procedure respectfully reports that the Office of Engrossing and Enrolling has carefully compared House Bill 1012, 1013, 1014, 1022, and 1111 and finds the same correctly enrolled. Respectfully submitted, John Hanson, Chair. Mr. Speaker, the Committee on House State Affairs reports that House Bill 1225 was tabled. House Bill 1257 was amended and due pass. House Bill 1302 and 1303 and Senate Bill 30 and 31 due pass. Respectfully submitted, Scott Odenbach, Chair. Mr. Speaker, the Committee on House Commerce and Energy reports that Senate Bill 25 and 205 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Carla J. Lems, Chair. Mr. Speaker, the House Committee on Appropriations reports that House Bill 1098, 1123, 1168, 1251, and 1259 were deferred to the 41st legislative day. House Bill 1082 and 1113 were amended and do pass. House Bill 1134, 1135, 1136, and 1279 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Mike Derby, Chair. Mr. Speaker, the Committee on House Judiciary reports that House Bill 1067, 1270, and 1305 were deferred to the 41st legislative day. House Bill 1298 was amended and do pass and placed on the consent calendar. House Bill 1322 was tabled. Respectfully submitted, Mike Stevens, Chair.
Messages from the Senate.
Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to return herewith House Bill 1012, 1013, 1014, 1022, and 1111, which have passed the Senate without change. Also, Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to return herewith House Bill 1062, which has been amended by the Senate, and your concurrence in the amendments is requested. Also, Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to transmit herewith Senate Bill 87, 110, 135, 208, 236, and 237, which have passed the Senate, and your favorable consideration is requested. Respectfully, Peggy Lorenz, Secretary.
Motions and resolutions.
Representative Odenbach moved that when we adjourn today, we adjourn to convene at 1 p.m. on Tuesday, February 24th, the 27th legislative day.
That Odenbach motion having been made and seconded, any remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the Odenbach motion will signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Consideration of committee reports.
Representative Odenbach moved that the reports of the standing committees on judiciary on House Bill 1140, as found on page 383 of the House Journal, and House Bill 1300, as found on page 384 of the House Journal. Also, State Affairs on House Bill 1161, as found on page 378 of the House Journal, and House Bill 1184, as found on page 379 of the House Journal, and House Bill 1274, as found on page 380 of the House Journal. Also House Appropriations on House Bill 1249, as found on page 382 of the House Journal. Also Military and Veterans Affairs on House Bill 1280, as found on page 377 of the House Journal, be adopted.
That Odenbach motion having been made and seconded, any remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the Odenbach motion will signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Representative Goodwin moved that House Bill 1160 be placed on today's calendar, the calendar of Monday, February 25th, the 26th legislative day.
The Goodwin motion that House Bill 1160 be placed on today's calendar having been made and seconded. Remarks on your motion, Representative Goodwin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What I'm asking is the 1160 be placed on the calendar today to have a full hearing on it. Basically, what we want to do is to get rid of the oversight committee and just have the committee in place like it was intended to do. There's no reason to have it. It's less government.
Representative?
I'm sorry.
Let's
I'm
just
going into the
stick
motion.
to the reason for calendaring, not to the merits of the legislation.
I have a hard time with this. I got to talk about both of them. I'm kind of not very good at this, Mr. Speaker. Have you noticed? I just ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on the calendaring motion? Any further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the House is the Goodwin motion that House Bill 1160 be placed on today's legislative calendar. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed, nay. The clerk will unlock the voting machine and the members will proceed to vote. Representative Whitman.
Personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning, our coffee and snacks were provided by the South Dakota Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, which is a group representing more than 300 registered dietitians and nutrition professionals. We also have a cohort of SDSU nutrition students in the Capitol today. They are above us wearing orange ribbons for hunger awareness, so please join them to the People's House today.
Representative Gosh.
Personal privilege, please.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, as many of you guys know, we do pride ourselves in having the most school districts of any district in the state of South Dakota, and today will be our second to last school to visit us, and that is the Mobridge Pollock High School under the direction of Mr. Jason Weisbeck. Help me welcome him.
Representative Cole. Mr. Speaker, all members have voted.
The clerk will please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were ayes 40, nays 27, excused 3.
The Goodwin motion, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of members elect, is hereby declared carried. House Bill 1160 will be placed at the bottom of today's debate calendar. First reading of Senate bills.
Senate Bill 87, clarify and establish requirements related to forensic medical examinations. Senate Bill 110, regulate how broadband internet access service providers use customer data. Senate Bill 135, protect residents from increased utility costs and utility shortages caused by data centers and clarify authority to regulate data centers. Senate Bill 208, require the award of certain disbursements to prevailing owners and taxpayers in appeals of property classifications or assessments. Senate Bill 236, create the County and Township Infrastructure Fund for the accounting, safekeeping, and allocation of unobligated rural access infrastructure fund monies. Senate Bill 237, require that counties provide written notice to township supervisors of conditional use applications and appeals.
Second reading of House bills.
House Bill 1046, an act to authorize the Department of Corrections to demolish the Pier Minimum Center, to make an appropriation therefore, and to declare an emergency.
House Bill 1046, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Representative Muckie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we bring you House Bill 1046, which is really, I think, well described by its title. Effectively, what we're allocating one-time money to is to demolish the Pier Minimum Center here at the Pier Women's Prison. Effectively, what I would tell you is this facility is not being used currently. It is vacant. It is unfit to be used going forward, especially with the new construction of a women's facility in Rapid City. As we continue to leave the building vacant, it'll continue to degrade, pose life safety concerns, and the costs, obviously, over time to demolish the center will continue to rise. And so really the answer to this bill, we're looking to allocate in one-time money general funds of around $683,000 to the Department of Corrections and authorize the state engineer to demolish the structure. Like I said, really, it's a fairly simple bill in the sense that the title very well describes it. I ask for your favorable consideration today and hope you'll vote green. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1046? Any further remarks? Representative Northrup.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Simple bill. We've got a building that we've determined is no longer usable, and we can tear it down this year, or we can tear it down 5 or 10 years from now. So I'd advocate that we tear it down now and move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1046? Any further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the House is final passage of House Bill 1046. Due to the appropriation and emergency clause, House Bill 1046 does require a 2/3 vote. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed, nay. The clerk will unlock the voting machine and the members will proceed to vote. Representative Heerman.
Sorry, guys. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 10 outstanding undergraduate students from South Dakota colleges and universities are here in the Capitol today to demonstrate firsthand the important connection between research and higher education. These students set up their research posters in the Capitol Rotunda earlier today to share the results of their research efforts with you. They are the best of the best among South Dakota's researchers from public, private, and tribal universities across South Dakota. They are currently above the speaker, and I would ask you to join me in welcoming them to the Capitol today.
Representative Ismay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I come from a large family of doctors and scientists, and I actually get to introduce my sister, Jody Ismay, and her husband, Sam. I think Sam's right there, yeah, and JoJo. All right, this is my niece's right there, my niece right there. That's her fiance. So I just would be thankful if you guys would welcome her to the Capitol.
Mr. Speaker, all members have voted.
Clerk will please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were ayes 57, nays 10, excused 3.
House Bill 1046, having received the affirmative vote of 2/3 of the members-elect, is hereby declared passed. Any questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed correct.
House Bill 1308, an act to reduce certain property taxes for owner-occupied property and to increase the rates for certain gross receipts, taxes, and use taxes.
House Bill 1308, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Representative Sismowski.
Mr. Speaker, I have an amendment.
Is that 1308B?
B, yes,
B.
it is.
Is it distributed online?
It is.
Do you wish to move it at this time?
I do.
Is there a second? The Sismowski motion to amend House Bill 1308 with Amendment 1308B having been made and seconded. Any remarks on your motion, Representative Sismowski?
Well, this bill is a package, and I guess with the amendment, I really feel that it's important that we all understand it, as I do believe if we all understand it and know what we're voting on, I believe it's going to be a good package. So with that, I also believe that we're going to probably give everybody a chance to study this and debate it tomorrow.
Thank you. Further remarks on the motion to amend, Representative Ismay.
Sorry, I'd like to 517.
Representative Ismay is invoking Joint Rule 517, which requires 1/5 of the members to support. If you support the Rule 517 motion, please stand. He is supported.
I want to recount.
House Bill 1278, an act to prohibit certain political committees from accepting contributions by certain officers or employees of this state.
House Bill 1278, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Representative Mortensen.
Good afternoon, colleagues in the House of Representatives. I bring to you House Bill 1278, and I will be the first to admit that this is a difficult and even uncomfortable conversation, but we still have to have those. That is probably an inherent aspect of any ethics bill, which this is. As the title suggests, this bill would prohibit contributions by certain state employees to their boss, the elected official. State government is an institution I care a great deal about, and state employees whom I represent equally so. Theodore Roosevelt is one of my heroes. I don't think he's the best president, but I've always admired his grit, determination, his willingness to stand up to anyone, no matter how powerful the foe, his willingness to see a fight through. And he had a quote, because a lot of his career he dedicated to civil service reform, the kind of ethics measure we're considering today. And he said, quote, "The offices of government should be administered in the interests of the people and not for the benefit of the politicians." Today, I would suggest that we are drawing a clear line. We should only ever want those folks who run these agencies to be in their jobs because they are good at their jobs. We want them to be interested solely in the practical and efficient administration of government. I think there is an inherent and inescapable pressure when your boss asks you for a political donation. I think no matter the purity of that request, no matter how well that person who's asking believes in their heart, there are no strings attached to it, the person being asked cannot help but feel that pressure. And it may be that several people say, well, I don't mind being asked and I don't mind giving. And that may be true. But there are still many more who are making a decision to reach into their own wallet and give politically for fear of a string being attached, for fear of some impurity. I will note that this isn't meant to be a stick in anyone's eye. This bill doesn't even take effect until January 1 of next year. So it doesn't really apply to any race, political race right now. I just think if you could sit in your seat right now and think, setting aside the people that I know, setting aside the lobbying I've endured, in 10 years, should this be the law? In setting aside all of the personalities, in 10 years, should this be the law? I think the answer is very clearly yes. This is a good government measure. It is narrowly tailored. It would apply to maybe 100 people out of the 23,000 that work for state government. I think it is narrowly tailored, and it makes our government that much, just a small bit, more ethical. We could add a bit more confidence of the public in their government. For that, I ask for your green vote.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1278. Representative Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to House Bill 1278. This legislation prohibits contributions, even if voluntary, regardless of the amount, and absent any evidence of coercion. Political contributions are a form of protected political expression. Public employees do not surrender their constitutional rights when they accept public service. If coercion exists, we already have laws on that. Be smart, vote red.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1278. Representative Goodwin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just have to stand and stick up for Teddy Roosevelt a little bit. To say that he wasn't the best president ever, I mean, he's on Mount Rushmore, for heaven's sakes. He's a Medal of Honor winner. What standard does the good representatives from Hughes County have?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1278. Representative Mullally.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition of 1278. The original version of 1278 and its successor, 1278D, imposed the narrow structure restrictions aimed at protecting against coercion and undue influence between state office holders and their direct subordinates, because it placed a guardrail on public officials, not citizens. 1278E, on the other hand, abandons that internal focus by adding a new section 2. The new provisions creates a blanket contribution cap of $10,000 per year on funds transferred from a federal candidate's.
Representative, you're speaking to an amendment that's online but hasn't been put onto the bill.
My bad.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1278. Representative Hughes.
Just a comment, Mr. Speaker. I do note that the Federal Hatch Act, which I believe probably stemmed from the McKinley assassination and spilled into the Roosevelt administration, even the Federal Hatch Act allows personal voluntary donations to parties and candidates. And I don't doubt the good intentions of the representative, but it concerns me that it's so easy to circumvent this. And in fact, by circumventing, you kind of disenfranchise the 100 or so people, because their spouses, their significant others, their children, their families would still be able to make contributions, but it's presuming that there's something improper and disenfranchising these 100 or so employees themselves from making a voluntary contribution. So I'm opposed to the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1278. Any further remarks? Representative Greenfield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to point out that actually donating money to somebody's campaign is a method of free speech. And so for that, I think this is a violation of free speech, and I'll be voting no.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1278. Any further remarks? Representative Mortensen in closing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to members of the body. As I say, I understand the delicate nature of this whole topic. To the free speech argument and the disenfranchisement, this bill would have no impact on anyone's ability to put up a yard sign in their yard and speak that way, to post on Facebook, to spend in an independent expenditure for a campaign in literally unlimited amounts. Those are all things guaranteed by the First Amendment that this does not touch whatsoever. Instead, this is a narrowly targeted application, and a clean one, Some other states, I would say, venture to say most other states, restrict this kind of conduct, but do so in a way that I think is entangling of speech and relationships to a far more greater degree. I think it is proper for this state instead to have a bright line where we just say, you cannot go to your subordinate and ask them to contribute money to your campaign. If they want to do so of their own free will and accord in an independent expenditure context, or in speaking their mind in their yard or on their Facebook wall, of course they can. To the federal law on this, it is currently true that John Thune's campaign committee cannot accept a donation from his chief of staff. That's been the law in Congress for years. And the Hatch Act at the federal level on federal executives has a lot of, again, the kind of complicated, I'll call it Rube Goldberg type applications as you go through that. In this case, I didn't want there to be any confusion. I didn't want there to be entanglement of spouses. I didn't want to overdraw this or loop in too many people. But I did want to create a simple and straightforward mechanism by which folks never had to feel that pressure that I believe to be inescapable. And I'm going to reiterate it one more time. This is not me standing here saying this, that, or the other person did something untoward and shame on them. That's not what this is. This is me saying that we can make a better mechanism and a better process that will avoid any of that pressure being felt or the appearance of that pressure by members of the public. I believe this is a good bill. I believe it is narrowly tailored, and I believe our state will be best served if we pass it. Please vote green.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the House is final passage of House Bill 1278. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed, nay. The clerk will unlock the voting machine, and the members will proceed to vote. Representative Baumüller.
Personal privilege.
Granted.
Well, today online, we have my favorite senator watching us. It is his birthday, Senator Arch Beal, and I would just like to tell him that the food court is open, and we all thank you for the beef jerky, and we thank you, Pam, for all you've done, and I love you, and happy birthday. So if you would help me welcome him, thank you.
Representative Shurma. Representative Shurma is asking if we can make an exception to sing happy birthday for Arch Beal. It's a mixed reaction. I don't know. Well, let's do it. What the heck? Okay. We love you, Arch. This one's for you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Arch. Happy birthday to you.
I hope somebody left their microphone on so you could hear that. Did you have yours? Okay, good.
Mr. Speaker, all members have voted.
Clerk will please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there are ayes 20, nays 47, excused 3.
House Bill 1278, having failed to receive the affirmative vote of the majority of members-elect, is hereby declared lost.
House Bill 1230, an act to modify requirements for payment of the employer's investment in South Dakota's future fee.
House Bill 1230, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Representative Lems.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. So yeah, today I bring you House Bill 1230. So House Bill 1230, basically when you boil it down, is about something very simple. It's about transparency and choice for our South Dakota employers who are so very important. So under our current law, the employer's investment in South Dakota's future fee is applied automatically. And many small employers have told us they either didn't fully understand it or were unaware that they were contributing to this. For some, the very first time they noticed it was when they reviewed very detailed payroll reports. In fact, if you're an employer, you can go to your quarterly unemployment return, and you can see on there it will say investment fee, and that's what we're talking about here. So that lack of clarity is part of the problem. And so House Bill 1230 does not eliminate this program. It does not prohibit an employer's participation in it, and it does not dismantle our workforce development. What it does is it shifts the structure from an automatic participation to voluntary participation. So if an employer sees the value in contributing, they can opt in to continue contributing into this. And if they don't, they could choose to opt out. There would be no penalties for that, no retroactive gains, just brings clarity to this. So South Dakota has long prided itself on limited mandates and employer freedom. The bill reinforces that tradition. It recognizes that workforce development already happens every single day through private investment, training, apprenticeships, and job creation, and that not every employer is situated the same way. You would see your large corporations absorb this fee very easily, but our small rural businesses feel them immediately. For instance, we have about 21,000 employers that pay into this. And in 2024, the number of our estimated establishments that have 0 to 9 workers are by far the most businesses in our state. So the average fee by the employers that pay into this per year is about $1,155. So House Bill 1230 restores consent and trust. Our employers should knowingly choose where their dollars go. If a program is valuable, employers will support it voluntarily. And if participation must be compelled to sustain it, that is something we should examine honestly. So this bill is not about anti-workforce. It's about transparency. It's a pro-business bill, and it is consistent with South Dakota's economic philosophy, and I would encourage your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1230? Representative Halverson.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, as I was driving up here this morning, I got a phone call from one of my constituents. He's a large farmer, a large feedlot owner, and he asked me to vote no on this bill. And as we talked about it, we talked about the fact that this has to do with Build South Dakota. He has one of his employees that he has sent to a tech school now, and he is guaranteed that this kid will be back for 5 years to work on his place and be a strong supporter in our area. I work for an electrical contractor who has 3 of these who have gone to school that he has paid. He's paid tuition for them so that they could go to tech school over in Mitchell. And they've all come back, and they've all been very, very well educated. And they are a very strong part of our community. So I just believe that we need to vote no on this particular bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1230? Representative Jameson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd urge your resistance to this bill. You know, as the sponsor mentioned, certainly it doesn't end the program. It turns it into a voluntary effort. But as you can imagine how the coasting effect would occur. So everybody kind of says, yeah, let's just not do that. A lot of good things kind of keep going for a little while, and then pretty soon that money runs out, the effort dries up, and no longer are we pushing in the same direction. And all of a sudden everybody's wondering, what should we do? And the reality was that this was seen back in 1987 when this program was developed. They knew, everybody knew that it was in business, that we had to do more. And that's when this was developed. Just a little bit more conversation about the Dakota Build, or the Build Dakota Scholarship Program. Over the years, the Dakota Build Scholarship has provided full ride scholarships for about 3,000 students. The students then need to work in South Dakota for 3 years. Those trade businesses, large and small, from across all over the state, are then provided a trained workforce, which is a huge benefit. Please oppose this bill.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1230? Representative Maki.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think it's important for the body to understand where the intent, positive may it be, for this bill may come from, and we've had a lot of conversation about the Futures Fund on this floor. I want to point back to you something, not to name a specific topic, but to remind you, this body did do multi-decade level reform to this fund just about a week and a half ago. It's important for us to remind ourselves, when we're concerned about the use of these dollars, did we do something to fix that? And I believe we did in a very comprehensive fashion, something that we have not seen since the start of the fund itself. But I also want to point you out to something as to why this fund exists. So as an employer, myself included, one of the things that's important about this fee is that this is a portion or a part of process in which we're investing in a workforce that is dynamic and that is prepared should something happen economically on large scale. So when we pay in, you're paying into unemployment benefits for those who may be left behind by a change in workforce suddenly, and this, which is to create opportunities for a workforce that will create a new future for South Dakota, such that our workforce, our ability to employ South Dakotans is always strong. That's the purpose of this fund. So when I see the modification requirements coming into this bill, my first thing that comes to mind is Do employers know what they're paying into? And the answer is we've been debating it on this floor. We just reformed it, and we're doing things to make sure that our workforce has the tools and support they need for the future. This is wholly unnecessary. And frankly, I appreciate the intent of the Good Prime sponsor. We've done generational work in terms of our ability to regulate this fund, and I'd ask you to vote red on this today because we've accomplished our work to that end. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1230, Representative Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 1230 does not expand subsidies, increase regulatory discretion, or impose new costs on the private sector. It repeals a mandatory fee in practice and replaces it with a freedom-preserving mechanism rooted in affirmative consent. Please vote green. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks, Representative Knowles.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, this bill is not debating the good or bad or the future fund. It's about consent. As employers, when you're paying in, if you don't want to invest into this fund, then you should be able to opt out. We see it in the agriculture industry, whether our soybean and corn check-off refunds, it's really no different. And absolutely, as employers, I would encourage you to invest in this fund and invest in your employees, but you should be able to say yes or no. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks, Representative Shorma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As previous people have said, this has been in place for a long time. A little misleading to say that the average contribution is $1,100. It's prorated based on business size, and it's far less than that for smaller businesses. Large corporations give the lion's share of the dollars, yet very few of them take advantage of the incentives that are offered because they're already in place and operating. What will happen if this opt-in provision is put in place? The program will end in a very short period of time, year or two or three. If I, as an employer, have the option to opt in and say, do I send my money to the state or not? When am I going to benefit from this again? Probably not in the near future, maybe never. I think I'll opt out. I'm not going to opt in, put it that way. So it really is only for people that potentially would have a reason to opt in. How many businesses does this fund help on an annual basis that would need to opt in? Pretty small numbers, yet the dollars that we all contribute, which we voted to contribute at the beginning of this, to say we're for economic development, it's not happening fast enough here in South Dakota, let's set up a fund to work on that, and that's what was the result of this fund. This works on not just helping businesses start up in a small startup. It's not retail, because there's a lot of competitors in every community so they pretty much completely move away from retail because they're funding one versus another in the same community or in the same region. It's actually seed startup for unique companies that are not present in their local communities. And it incents those people to say, look, I'll give you some seed money to help you get started. It's not a big chunk of money, but it's just something to say, we want you here. When I moved my business to Yankton, South Dakota in 1992, I got a big, huge check, $10,000, if I came to Yankton, South Dakota with a fairly good-sized company. That told me they wanted me there. It wasn't the size of the fund, a contribution. It was the fact that they said, yes, you know what, we want you here. And I've been here ever since. Now, whether you think that's a positive or a negative, I'll let you decide that. Anyway, so I oppose this bill. I really believe that the Future Fund has a really strong place in our economy to help with getting businesses here in South Dakota. And we know that more businesses, more employees, more property taxes, more sales tax, all of that goes together. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1230? Representative Andera.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question for the prime.
State your question.
Can you name maybe 3 or 4 purchases out of the future fund that you could share with us?
Representative Lems, do you wish to answer that question?
Well, obviously, we do know some things that have been purchased from the future fund that there's been eyebrows raised at. And so the things that we're talking about that are good things, you know, it's not that we're against those things, but we have seen abuse with this in the past. And I don't know that I'm going to name all of those things, but, you know, we talk about the rodeo, we talk about the gun range, and there have been abuses of the future fund. And so, again, I would just emphasize that is taxpayer money, that is hard-earned dollars that are many small businesses across the state work hard to retain that are being used for these other things.
Follow-up or remarks, Representative Andera?
Follow-up.
State your question.
So are you aware of these businesses really understanding what they're contributing to when they have this fee associated?
Representative Lems, do you wish to answer that question?
Yes, I do. Many of them that have reached out to me are not aware of this. I checked actually with many businesses over the weekend even, and the response that I got back overwhelmingly was no. And some of them that did know that they're paying in don't want to be paying in. However, there are those that we just heard about, a large employer that is excited about this and want to be contributing, and that's what this bill does, is it gives choice.
Follow-up or remarks, Representative Andera?
Just remarks, Mr. Speaker. You guys, I think this is all about disclosure. That's what this boils down to. If you're an employer and you're paying this fee and you don't know where that money is going, that has got to raise concerns for anyone. I don't pay a fee unless I really know where it's going to. And fees, we are riddled with fees these days. So having an option to say, I want to be part of this or not part of this, I think that's fair. I think that's part of disclosure. I think that's part of being transparent. I think that's part of being honest. The other thing, and I'm just going to give you an example. Now, I am pro Second Amendment, but I know there are businesses in Sioux Falls that are against the Second Amendment, and we, you know, basically constructed a shooting range with their money that they're paying in fees. I bet you they didn't want that to happen. So there needs to be more disclosure. There needs to be more transparency, and I would vote for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks, Representative Hughes?
Just comments, Mr. Speaker. I believe approximately $9 million was spent on South Dakota Works. I believe that was the figure. We have full employment in South Dakota, folks. We have the lowest unemployment rate in the nation, and we brag about that. The problem is that we advertise ourselves as a low-wage state, and we're going to stay low-wage as long as we have full employment, because I don't know what we are spending money on workforce development for when we have the lowest unemployment rate in the nation. So I'm going to support this bill.
Thank you. Further remarks, Representative Overweg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I think it's time we get back to the bill. This bill is not about what the future fund does or doesn't do. This is about whether employers can opt out of contributing to it. And if you look at it that way, I want to ask you, do you think it's fair as a business? I don't know how many of you have employees, how many of you pay wage tax, but wage tax is out of this world insane. And that goes directly back to what you pay your employees. As an employer, your costs are your cost. And if you can pay your employees more, you do. Wage tax is there. So the real question about this bill is, should an employer be able to opt in or opt out, however you want to say it? And that's very simple. I think it's American where someone is not forced to contribute to something that they don't want to. This is an extra thing. This isn't income tax. This is an extra. And whether we like it or not, most of this money is heading to either the west or the east side of the state, funded by the middle also. So that's really when you're voting, and I'm going to support this bill. If you don't, that's fine, but support it on the merits or vote against it on its merits, not the future fund. Whether or not you feel it's right that a state like South Dakota can force employers to contribute to a fund that most likely will never affect them. That's the real question. So thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1230. Representative Weems.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I'll use the classic line. I wasn't going to talk about this bill, but here I am. You know, after session last year, I did a lot of research about what this bill actually does, the companies that pay into this. And I had gotten pushback from some people in my district, in my city, that this didn't really help small businesses and it didn't really help entrepreneurs. Well, I learned differently. The problem is every single one of us should be going back to our districts and talking to the new businesses, the small businesses, to reach out to the Governor's Office of Economic Development for help in what they're trying to do, in what they're trying to expand, in what they're trying to grow, in their workforce. And the problem is not everybody reaches out. Brand new businesses, that should be their first call. That should be their absolute first call, because they'll get help. And they'll get help to grow. And there's a business in Tea, South Dakota, that started out just very, very small. They've had help 3 times to grow and to develop a workforce that helps keep them in South Dakota and add value to our state. And so I think maybe there's some people who don't know what it's doing, but then let's educate them, because it's advantageous for every small business to know what the Governor's Office of Economic Development and what these dollars can do. So I would urge you all to vote no on this bill.
Thank you. Further remarks, Representative Gosh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Taking a look at the Futures Fund, in 2025, there's $500,000 that was spent in an ad campaign that calls for Freedom Works Here. You guys have probably heard of that ad campaign. That was spent in Tennessee with a company to do the South Dakota ad campaign. I'm sure, I'm probably not positive, but I'm almost certain that there are other ad companies in the state of South Dakota that potentially could have used that funding to, I don't know, do the exact same thing to express that freedom works here. The freedom of not being taxed and money being spent in an out-of-state company to compete against yourself. Let's call this what it is. This is a tax. It's the same as the checkoffs. It's the same as everything else. This is a tax that you have zero control over as a business owner, and guess what? It might come after you. I know situations in my communities that they contacted the Futures Fund just to save the primary employer in their communities in multiple occasions, and they were told to fly a kite in a lightning storm. So let's talk about what the Futures Fund is. It is a slush fund that we are all forced to pay in as employers, and we don't always see the benefit, especially in small communities of South Dakota. So I would urge you to vote for this. I think it's a good bill. It's freedom, guys. Freedom works here. Let's listen to our friends in Tennessee, and let's vote yes on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1230. Representative Ismay.
Vote green.
Thank you. Further remarks, Representative Roby.
Well, I would just echo what the good representative from Sioux Falls said earlier. We've had a bill here this year to put some more guardrails on the Future Fund. This has been around for almost 40 years now, doing good things for South Dakota. Yes, there's been some instances where we would all agree that perhaps this wasn't used appropriately, but as the old saying goes, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think Exhibit A is the Dakota Scholarship Program. It's just been a tremendous program for our state. So I'd encourage you to vote no. Thank you.
Further remarks? Would any member wish to speak before Representative Shorma speaks for a second time? Representative May.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, what a great debate on this. I don't think there's anybody in here that doesn't know that the Future Fund really is a burr under my saddle blanket. The good representative from wherever he's from, Mobridge, he hit on a few things, but I want to make it clear that I'm not against everything that the Future Fund does, because when you look at the Build South Dakota Scholarship, and I know a lot of kids that have participated in that and done really well, that's a good part of the program, and I think that's what its intentions was for. But it has far outgrown that, far outgrown it. So if we're going to be honest on this floor, we have to separate out what is good and what is bad. It has been abused. The Future Funds is being abused, and it's using people like me that has a handful of employees, 25, 30 employees. It's the ranch hand, it's the mechanic, it's the welder, it's those people. Now, we voted down that gun range 6 ways to Sunday. We said, no, we're not doing that. In the appropriations, we did it. We killed it. What happened? We turn our back, and a few months later, that Future Funds is used to pay for the gun range. Now, you can argue, is a gun range good or bad or indifferent? I mean, I don't know. Is that the intent? Is that what the intent was for the Future Fund? I don't think it ever was meant for that, folks. And the problem is when we do things like this, I think back in 1987, I think they had it right. I think that they really were thinking it through, and I think they wanted to support young people in getting some of these different degrees to help with the workforce in the state. Gun range is just not one of them, I'm sorry. Now, we can measure progress. I don't know how you measure that, honestly. Because progress, to me, means something completely different than what we see. My progress in my business isn't relying on a slush fund. Am I big enough? Am I important enough? Do I do enough that I qualify? I just think it's a bad thing. And the other thing that really bothers me, we have no control over it. It's under the executive branch. So we don't get to say where that money goes or what happens with that money. That's the other thing. So I know that this bothers a lot of people when this conversation comes up, and I get that. I understand that. But this is not getting rid of this Future Fund. Actually, I think this is going to make it work a whole lot better. People are going to have more trust. Nobody has any trust in this anymore. Every time we turn around, the next news cycle is another $500,000 to this outfit or that outfit we've never even heard of. And if it's up and down the I-29 corridor, you all got to agree with me on this. I know you do. That's where it is. That's where the money's going. So progress in my world doesn't look like that, but yet I'm paying into it. I think an opt-in, opt-out, however you want to look at it, is a very fair and freedom-loving way to do business here in South Dakota. So I hope you will support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1230, Representative Sismowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm certain that we can all agree that nobody wants waste, and certainly that part of it I don't support. But I've seen 4 governors worth of projects do a lot of good for this state. And if you feel you're not impacted, you know, you just aren't feeling it, because what this is intended to do is to grow our state. And the last time I checked, the biggest and most impactful way to reduce taxes is have more businesses and more people paying them. So that's what I want to preserve. And if you defund something, it's over. And maybe, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 years from now, we'll have a replacement mechanism that will promote our state. But that's because then we'll have fallen into an unfortunate situation that pushes us to say, we really ought to do something to promote our state. So as an optimist, I've always focused on, and just like in a business, you know, anybody in here that's ran a business, do you make money every day? And do you make money on every decision? Because some governors have made some bad choices. We want to get rid of those. But sometimes there's unfortunate decisions that are made that don't come through like they should have. That's called a loss. But as long as the gains outweigh those losses, we got to keep growing our states. So that's my view, and I just wanted to add that to the discussion. So thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1230. Would any member wish to speak before Representative Sharma speaks for a second time? Representative Sharma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a couple little things to, yeah, we've been voting this session on some guardrails for this. We're trying to deal with those bad decisions, and I think we've pretty well done that. Is our intent to reduce the problems that we've had before? I think it is. Now, we have a low unemployment. So why in the world would we need the Future Fund? Well, let me tell you, low unemployment in my little business in Springfield means my employees in the last year and a half have gotten 20% wage increases, because there's not enough people to go around, and I want them to come to work for me and stay. That has an impact on how many other companies are moving to the state. Now, if other companies move to the state, what do? They bring in families too. That helps. So it's just the opposite of what you might hear, that job growth is not necessary because we don't have enough people. Wages are driven by the market. And if we have fewer people to fill the jobs than the market needs, wages go up. That's a good thing. Same way with benefits and various other things. So I really hope that you will support not putting an opt-in into place, because I believe that kills the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1230, Representative Derby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would be remiss if I didn't say something in support of the shooting range in Rapid City. I know it went through a lot of trials and tribulations, but I hope at some point in time in your career, you all take a tour of the shooting range. It is now a world-class facility. It's already ranked as one of the top shooting ranges in the country. People come from all over the country, from the military to our law enforcement for training. And so I would just like to set the record straight and take that off the list of bad decisions, because it's been a fantastic investment by the Future Fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1230. Representative Mucky. Would any member wish to speak before Representative Mucky speaks for a second time? Representative Mucky.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have to restate something that I think is very important for this body to hear. The good representative's intent here, in my opinion, is positive when we're talking about concerns about the use of funds. But I want to remind you of something very important. This body just passed a bill within a week and a half ago that is extremely detailed in how the fund is going to be used going forward, brought by my good friend, the representative from New Holland. When this debate is being focused on not the subject of the bill, which I think is a disservice to the prime sponsor, I think having a conversation more so about opt-in versus opt-out is where we need to focus on. But for the debate that's been raging on, which I also agree with many of you about, we talk about the need to protect that fund from being used and abused for wrong purposes. You as a body just did that in very dramatic, very significant fashion. You accomplished that. So let's focus on the debate here. If we're going to focus on the debate here, I want to, rise again. I'll share my reason for voting red. If we start down this path, we are starting on the path of, are we going to opt out of unemployment insurance? Are we going to start opting out of workers' compensation? Because we're talking about, maybe not the same thing for everybody in this case, but we're talking about, those are things that we're talking about opt-in versus opt-out, where you may not benefit from those as an employer, but you contribute to the pool in the case that you do. And you might actually benefit from this, especially knowing our Build Dakota scholars who have been supported by this land very actually significantly in our rural communities. And so I encourage you today, if we're going to talk about the abuses of the Futures Fund, you've accomplished something very significant. You brought in, reined in policy, very in-depth, a bill that accomplished that. If it's about opt-in versus opt-out, consider the merits of that instead. And for that reason, what I just shared, I will be voting red. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1230? Any further remarks? Representative Lems in closing.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if you would give me some latitude to speak to some of the comments, even though we kind of did get off the mark here a little bit. What came to me while I was listening to all of the comments, and I do appreciate all of your input here. What came to me was the words from Ronald Reagan. He said, the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. And it's just so interesting to me today, hearing all the conversation on the floor in this ruby red state of South Dakota. I'm hearing government is the solution. Reach out and we can help you. I heard that economic development funded with tax dollars is there to reduce our taxes. And I would just ask, how has that worked out for us? We're facing a crisis with property taxes as we speak. What I'm also hearing is that the state, if you're an employer listening today, the state will do better with your dollars than you as the employer reinvesting that in your own business. So to get back to the bill, the real objection here is not that employers won't be able to participate. They absolutely can participate in this program. The objection is that they will now have to choose if they wish to do so or not. If a program depends on default enrollment rather than informed consent, that is not a strength. That is structural dependence. We should never structure public policy around the assumption that employers won't notice. We are told this could weaken workforce investment, but I do reject that premise. South Dakota employers are the backbone of our workforce development. They train, they hire, they retain, and they create opportunity every single day without being compelled. If this program delivers measurable value, the employers will opt in. They will see the value of it. And if participation drops, that is not sabotage. That's accountability. Government should earn participation, not assume it. And let's be clear, small businesses feel these fees differently than large corporations do. When we defend automatic collection, We are not protecting workforce development. We are protecting a revenue stream. So this bill just restores a simple principle. No contribution without clear consent. That's not radical. That is responsible governance. So members, this is about transparency, trust, and respecting the people who create jobs in this state. So I urge your due pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the House is final passage of House Bill 1230. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed, nay. The clerk will unlock the voting machine and the members will proceed to vote. Representative Mucky.
Personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I want to make sure I would be remiss if I don't introduce my friends up in the gallery here from the University of South Dakota Political Science League. It's always fun to have some fellow coyotes in the room, and so you can stand and be recognized. Appreciate you welcoming them to the Capitol today.
Mr. Speaker, all members have
The
voted.
clerk will please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were ayes 31, nays 36, excused 3.
House Bill 1230, having failed to receive the affirmative vote of the majority of members elect, is hereby declared lost.
House Bill 1160, an act to repeal the Medical Marijuana Oversight Committee.
House Bill 1160, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Representative Goodwin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for finally letting me talk about the bill itself. Boy, that was tough. I must have a mental block. House Bill 1160 is a bill that's straightforward. It repeals Medical Marijuana Oversight Committee. Let me be clear about what this bill does not do. It does not repeal medical cannabis. It does not restrict patient access. It does not weaken enforcement. It does not change the underlying regulatory framework. What it does, it streamlines government. The Oversight Committee was created during the early implementation phase of medical cannabis program. At that time, it made sense. The state was standing up a new regulatory system, issuing licenses, establishing rules, and navigating the unknowns. We are now 5 years later, and that phase is now completed. Today, the program is fully operational. Department of Health has rulemaking authority. Enforcement authority already exists. Regulatory safeguards are in place. The legislature retains full budget and statutory oversight. The Oversight Committee is advisory only. It does not regulate. It does not enforce. It does not make binding decision. It makes recommendations that ultimately return to the body to execute agencies for the action. It does have the authority for a purpose of, it does not have the authority to propose, any legislation. In effect, we are now have a layer of oversight, overseeing system that's already overseen. The bill recognizes the redundancy and removes it. If at any point the legislator believes the program requires review, we have an interim committees. We have standing committees. We have the authority to request reports, hold hearings, and amend statute. That power does not disappear with this repeal. The measure is about efficiency and consistency. We do not maintain permanent standing oversight committees for every regulatory program in state government. Medical cannabis should be treated the same way as any other regulatory of the regulatory industries. The LRC likely spent as much time on this committee as it did on the property task force this past summer. The fiscal assessment of the committee is to meet the committee costs can be saved. Program is functional, regulatory structure exists, oversight remains intact through normal legislative channels. The bill simply eliminates an extra layer that has outlined in its original has outlived, its original purpose. I respectfully ask for your support.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1160. Representative Ismay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess I'm considered the weed guy here. So I have to actually, the Medical Marijuana Oversight Committee was established for the medical marijuana oversight. So I would really like to know what the good representative, what other committees do we have that oversees the medical marijuana?
Is that a question for the prime sponsor?
Yes, sorry.
Representative Goodwin, do you wish to answer that question?
I guess I'll try. We feel that it's functional now, and that if we do have to have something, we can bring it back through legislation. We go through the Department of Health, but everything seems to be working now, so it's just a chance to peel back layer of government.
Follow-up remarks, Representative Ismay.
Thank you. We don't have any oversight. The Health Department is the oversight. And the committee, I thought it was kind of interesting because as soon as we started overseeing as the legislature, we had our committee and they started actually overseeing the medical marijuana, this bill pops up. So I thought it was kind of interesting, but I guess I would just really urge everyone in this room to vote no on this bill because we do not have oversight of medical marijuana right now. We don't know. I've talked to a lot of people that don't even know that you don't need a prescription. It's just a card. We had a card bill come in here, actually brought it. And I tried to make it as simple as humanly possible. And I understand you're probably trying to make this law simpler, which good luck. It's ridiculous. But I would just really urge, you guys need to have oversight over medical marijuana. It's still a Schedule I drug. We have to have oversight over this. So I respectfully vote no.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1160, Representative Schaefbauer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A few points here about this bill from the Health Committee perspective. Number one, it did have a fair hearing, and it was sent to the 41st day, 8 to 5. Number two, the good representative said, this will save taxpayer dollars if we repeal the medical marijuana committee. So I asked how much the committee cost each time. And in state statute, it says that they have to meet at least twice a year. And I know this year was an exception and they met 3 times a year, but each committee is $2,000. So in this exceptional year, it cost $6,000 to meet. To me, $6,000 with one of the previous bills we just heard, look at all the money that is spent throughout the state. I think let's say $6,000 to $9,000, definitely less than $10,000 a year is pretty cheap to make sure we keep the citizens of South Dakota safe. Now, do we have all the guardrails around medical marijuana? No, we don't. We are still waiting on, cards that a person can carry on them, digital ID card that you can just have on your phone since more people have their phone on them than their wallet. There are still a few things that the Medical Marijuana Oversight Committee is essential for. I think, I'm fine with smaller government, but I think right now this bill to repeal the Medical Marijuana Committee is just a little premature. Give it another year. Let's get the Department of Health and the digital cards all set up. And then, maybe by next session, you can repeal it. So I'm just going to ask you to resist this bill and vote red. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks, Representative Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to repeat this did go through Health and Human Services and got sent to the 41st day. One fact I just want to state on the floor, last year we had a bill similar to this, and according to the Department of Health, we have 10,000 medical marijuana cards in South Dakota and 100,000 monthly users. We do not have medical marijuana in South Dakota. We have recreational, That is why this oversight committee is needed. Please vote no.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1160, Representative Andera.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I am on the Medical Marijuana Oversight Committee. Whether you choose to repeal this or not is definitely up to you, but let me tell you a few things I learned. I learned that a lot of people that are stakeholders that should have been at prior Medical Marijuana Oversight Committee meetings were not there. We brought so many different players into this committee so that we could really truly understand what a medical marijuana program is, what it needs to be successful, what the loopholes are. I would have to say, aside from the fact that it was a little bit contentious at times, probably one of the most exciting committees I've ever been on, not only for learning, but also to have all stakeholders at the table. The other thing I want to mention is some of the things that came out of this committee just this year, or just this past year, I'm sorry. The good Madam Chair, she brought a bill, and she was going to have that relate to or impress upon the Department of Health to create digital cards, all ready to go. And then the Department of Health came in, and thankfully they did. They started working on it. Came to the good Madam Chair and said, look, we see that you've got a digital ID card bill, but you know what? After all of these conversations that we've had in Medical Marijuana Oversight Committee, we started on this. We're moving on this. We've got more information now. That's what happens when you have an unbiased committee. Now, a lot of people said that this committee was biased. I think everybody got pretty much a fair shake. I didn't feel it was biased at all. Some people may have had their own their own agendas, absolutely, but many of us have that. We have our own preferences. But I believe that everybody got a fair shake. Plus, before I conclude here, we have representatives in the city of Sioux Falls who had called us and actually were proponents for us to keep the Medical Marijuana Oversight Committee, saying it was the best one and the most productive one that they've ever been a part of, even though it was contentious. We are still in a moving target here. There's still a lot of things that are changing with the medical marijuana, and work is yet to be done. I'm going to agree with the good representative from Brown. Maybe not now, but maybe here in a couple years, maybe in 3 years, maybe when it's really fully stood up. But it's not there yet. So please, vote red. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1160, Representative Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and esteemed body here and those listening. I thought I'd get up today just as the chair of this committee, and I concur with everything that everyone has said, and even with the good representative bringing the bill. But I just want to remind people that in November 2020, the voters of South Dakota approved Initiative Measure Number 26. They created the state's medicinal marijuana program. And in doing that, they developed 7 steps that we were to do as an oversight committee. And I'm just going to ask for a little latitude so people have the actual idea of what this committee is about. First one was the ability of qualifying patients in all areas of the state to obtain timely access to high-quality medical cannabis. The second was the effectiveness of dispensaries and cultivation facilities individually and together in serving the needs of qualifying patients, including the provision of educational and support services by dispensaries, the reasonableness of their prices, whether they are generated any complaints or security problems, and the sufficiency of the number of operating to serve the state's registered qualifying patients. Number 3, our job was to see the effectiveness of the cannabis testing facilities, including whether a sufficient number are operating. Number 4, the sufficiency of the regulatory and security safeguards contained in this chapter and adopted by the department to ensure that access to and use of cannabis cultivated is provided only to cardholders. Next was any recommended additions or revisions to the department regulations or this chapter, including recommendations relating to security, safe handling, labeling, and nomenclature. Next was any research studies regarding health effects of medical cannabis for patients. And lastly, any medical and clinical aspects of the medical cannabis program. In these lengthy 3 meetings, we did have a lot of controversy. We found that the industry was really the one that was supporting the Department of Health. We clearly identified that there is a need. 70% of the South Dakotans did vote for this in 2020, and we do have the program. But what is lacking is the clarity in how it was tested. We are still needing 2 more elements tested. We did not bring any laws on that. We're trying to work with the lab. We did identify the digital cards was essential because we don't have that. We don't even have a way to access the cards. Law enforcement has been asking for that. And then the big thing that I had was it's a class 1. So it should be on the prescription drug monitoring program. And with that, we are not sufficient in that. We have not identified the gender, date of birth, address, phone number. There's a lot of missing information. Hence why we have a big problem with just implementing those 3 things. So I ask, before you decide on this program, remember, this is medicinal. We don't need to make a mistake here. And also, we do need to put the guardrails in for the future of this program as it evolves, whether we eliminate it or not. But there has to be some oversight. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on House Bill 1160? Any further remarks? Representative Goodwin in closing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And at the risk of beating this horse to death, just a couple of things. So the good representative from Duke County says we have 10,000 cards and 100,000 users. So where's the Oversight Committee? Doesn't seem like much happened there. Says we don't have any cards. We can't get anything digital. What's the Oversight Committee done? Don't seem like they did much there. And I don't mean this in disrespect for the committee because I know they came in good conscience and worked hard. But I'm just saying it's time to disband this committee. It's not necessary anymore, and let's move on. I appreciate your vote.
Thank you. Seeing no further remarks, the question before the House. Final passage of House Bill 1160. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed, nay. The clerk will unlock the voting machine, and the members will proceed to vote. Representative Hunt. Granted.
I would like to point everyone to the back of the gallery. I have some constituents that came to visit us today. Barbara Great and Mitzi Mayer Simon brought their homeschool group here to visit us in the Capitol and see how the people work in the House and in the committees. If you would all give them a round of applause for being a part of the process.
Mr. Speaker, all members have voted.
Clerk will please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were ayes 41, nays 26, excused 3.
House Bill 1160, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of members elect, is hereby declared passed. Any questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed correct. Second reading of Senate bills.
Senate Bill 26, an act to revise procurement for highway construction contracts.
Senate Bill 26, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Representative Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I bring Senate Bill 26 to revise procurement for highway construction projects. It passed out of Senate Transportation 7-0, went through the Senate 31-3, came out of the House Transportation Committee 10-0 with a consent. Thank you.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 26? Representative Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While efficiency in road construction is a valid concern, this bill weakens important statutory protections that guard against favoritism, waste, and lack of competition in public contracting. Please vote no.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 26? Any further remarks? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the House is final passage of Senate Bill 26. All those in favor will vote yea, those opposed nay. The clerk will unlock the voting machine, and the members will proceed to vote.
Goodwin votes aye. Representative Fitzgerald. Representative Hughes. Mr. Speaker, all members have voted.
Clerk will please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there are ayes 53, nays 14, excused 3.
Senate Bill 26, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of members elected, is hereby declared passed. Any questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed correct.
Senate Bill 71, an act to authorize the assumption of certain responsibilities and the waiver of sovereign immunity in connection with certain actions under federal environmental law.
Senate Bill 71, having had its second reading, is up for consideration and final passage. Are there any remarks? Representative Randolph.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I will do my best on this particular bill because there are some moving parts on it, but I'll just try to be as simple as I possibly can. So what Senate Bill 71 does is it allows the Department of Transportation for South Dakota to take over oversight responsibilities for environmental review on federally funded road projects. Okay. Now, just to give a little detail on what takes place as far as that is concerned, what the federal government does right now, as far as that's concerned, is study environmental impacts, prepare environmental assessment or environmental impact statements, consult with environmental agencies, allow public comment, consider alternatives. And basically what this means is that in this agreement, we would take over all those duties, bring that closer to home, which would allow things to move faster. Our timing on permits, we would have the oversight concerning the NEPA, or the National Environmental Policy Act. Underneath that, we would take control and basically have that oversight concerning that. Now, in the title, it also says sovereign immunity, waiving sovereign immunity. Now, that part makes me a little nervous. It always has. But the good thing about this bill is it's narrowly tailored specifically to this here. It doesn't go outside of that. And what does it mean as far as sovereign immunity in this case? Basically, the 11th Amendment to the Constitution means that a state cannot be sued in federal court unless it waives consent. Okay. In this particular case, since we're taking responsibility for this oversight, then it means that if anyone decides to sue because they believe at any step in the process it was not done right, that means that we would represent ourselves as far as the state is concerned, which I think is a better deal. So with that said, I will stand by for questions and ask for a green vote.
Thank you. Further remarks on Senate Bill 71. Representative Emery.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today not in opposition of Senate Bill 71 and not to debate its merits, but I rise on a broader institutional concern, one that extends beyond this bill and beyond this session. South Dakota is home to the 9 federally recognized tribal nations: the Rosebud, the Oglala, the Yankton, the Crow Creek, the Lower Brule, the Cheyenne River, the Standing Rock, and the Flandreau Sioux tribes, as well as the Sisseton, Wahpeton, Oyate. These are sovereign governments. They are not advocacy networks. They are not stakeholders in a traditional sense. They are governments whose jurisdictions, lands, citizens are directly affected by many of the policies debated in this chamber. And when we speak about sovereignty in this chamber, we often speak of our own, about state sovereignty, about federal overreach, about the 10th Amendment, about our authority to govern ourselves, and that same principle should be the guide in our conduct. If we expect sovereignty to be honored, then we must demonstrate that honor, that our sovereignty of the tribal nations within our borders. We frequently reference tribal consultation. It is a phrase that we are comfortable using, but consultation must be more than a phrase. It must be in practice. Consultation is not merely notification. It is not a courtesy email after a bill hearing has already been introduced. It is not limited to the 2 minutes of testimony once the legislation train has already left the station. Meaningful consultation occurs before the policy is set in motion when there is still opportunity for dialogue, adjustment, and in collaboration. Again, I'm not addressing the merits of Senate Bill 71, but the legislation that touches on federal authority, environmental review, infrastructural development, or sovereign immunity intersects within the tribal lands and tribal governance. These intersections are not theoretical, they are practical and ongoing. When consultation does not occur early and consistently, the consequences are predictable. Strained relationships, distrust, and sometimes litigation. That is not good for our state, it's not good for our tribes, and it's not good for our taxpayers. We can do better and we should do better. Institutional relationships should not depend on who is in office. It should not depend on informal channels or personal relationships. It should be structured, predictable, and durable. If consultation continues exists primarily as talking points rather than embedded in legislative practice, then this body should be prepared to examine their structural reforms that ensure it becomes routine rather than optional. This is not a threat. This is not a criticism of any member of either chambers. It is acknowledgement that strong governments create strong frameworks. The 9 tribal nations of South Dakota should not feel as though they are reacting to the sidelines when policy decisions are being finalized. They should feel that their government-to-government relationships within this state are respected in both word and in action. We owe that to the long-term stability of this state. We owe that to the future legislatures, and we owe that to the generations who inherit the relationships that we are striving that we can either strengthen or weaken here today. Mr. Speaker, I offer these remarks in spirit of seriousness and institutional responsibility. Consultation must be moved forward from theory to constant practice. When it does, this state is stronger because of it. Opila, thank you.
Thank you. Let's try to keep to the merits of the proposal before us, which is Senate Bill 71. Any further remarks on Senate Bill 71? Seeing no further remarks, the question before the House is final passage of Senate Bill 71. All those in favor will vote yea, those opposed nay. The clerk will unlock the voting machine and the members will proceed to vote.
Mr. Speaker, all members have voted.
Clerk will please display the vote.
Mr. Speaker, there were ayes 61, nays 6, excused 3.
Senate Bill 71, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of members elect, is hereby declared passed. Any questions on the title? Seeing none, the title is deemed correct. There being no objection, the House will now revert to order of business number 11, first reading of Senate bills. Speaker signs to House Commerce and Energy, Senate Bill 110. To House Health and Human Services, Senate Bill 87. To House Judiciary, Senate Bill 224. To House Local Government, Senate Bill 236 and 237. To House State Affairs, Senate Bill 135. To House Taxation, Senate Bill 208. Is the doctor of the day in the gallery? Our doctor of the day is in the back, ladies and gentlemen. Today's doctor of the day is Ian Jensen, a family medicine resident at the Center for Family Medicine in Pierre. Dr. Jensen earned his medical degree from, is it Saba University? Saba University School of Medicine. He's a member of the South Dakota State Medical Association. Please join me in welcoming and thanking Dr. Jensen. The Constitution requires a speaker to sign bills in open session, and so the speaker is signing Senate Bill 73, an act to revise provisions relating to state financial practices. Speaker signing House Bill 1012, an act to revise and repeal provisions allowing probation for contempt of a custody or visitation decree. The Speaker is signing House Bill 1013, an act to clarify the purposes permitted for certain offenders to operate a motor vehicle. Speaker signing House Bill 1014, an act to modify the surcharge for a responding party in a forcible entry and detainer action. The Speaker is signing House Bill 1022, an act to revise and repeal provisions related to the Crime Victims Compensation Program. Thank you. And the Speaker is signing House Bill 1111, an act to modify the requirements for obtaining an agricultural processor's lien. Announcements, Representative Overweg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tomorrow morning, 7:45, House Ag and Natural Resources, room 414.
Thank you, Representative Mulder.
Thank you. Tomorrow morning, 7:45, room 412, House Health, 3 bills.
Thank you, Representative Ladner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No local government tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Representative Randolph.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Transportation tomorrow morning in room 413. We have 3 bills. 10 o'clock.
And a what? I'm sorry, I missed that last part.
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, okay, thank you. Representative Hughes.
House Taxation, 7:45 tomorrow morning, you know where.
Thank you, Representative Derby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Joint Committee on Appropriation Bill hearings at 9:30 tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Capitol Commission Bible Study, 7 a.m., Governor's Large Conference Room.
Thank you. Representative Odenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House State Affairs meets 15 minutes after we gavel out in 414 to consider 3 more bills.
Thank you, sir. Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, Representative Baumüller.
Mr. Speaker, I move we adjourn.
All those in favor of adjournment will signify by saying aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.